hate my kids. And it's awful, but it's true. They have turned us into people we don't want to be.
First of all, congratulations on the show. Your performance really blew me away. And I feel like that moment where Kitty rips the toupee is one of the most brutal in a very brutal show. And I know you actually shot that scene first, so I'm sort of curious what your biggest anxiety going into that first take was.
I guess, in all honesty, my biggest anxiety was, how am I going to act as well as Javier Bardem? I mean, he is a brilliant actor, and the part is very intense of José. And I thought, if I am going to, make any sort of impact in the show, I'm going to have to be able to kind of match his intensity and, infuse the character with, all of the knowledge I have of women, that have found themselves in her circumstance, and try and bring some depth to the character, some clarity, some dignity, some complexity, some richness, just for her to be impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that she does have a lot of depth and a lot of insecurities sort of around her own appearance and things. And it feels like, to compensate for this, she's always sort of performing in some capacity. So I'm curious how you sort of get to the meat of a character who does always seem to be wearing those masks.
Right. Well, it's very hard to get to the meat of her because it's like I'm playing everybody else's idea of her, except for episode 6. And of course, that's mostly made up by the writers. We don't know for sure that that's what she was saying at the psychiatrist's office, but I think that addressing, woman's or, a mother's, fears about her children and about how much she even likes her children is something that's rarely ever said. So I thought that was a really unique opportunity. I know a lot of women who have had children and been in postpartum and had a really hard time connecting with them, or who have teenagers and they're frightened by them. I mean, can you imagine living with those boys? Even their physicality around her must have been terrifying for her. So I think, I got to address a lot of things, even though those few scenes in episode 6 that just people don't really discuss.
Absolutely. And I feel like there are so many of these heavy scenes, but you mentioned working with Javier, and I think that seeing their dynamic adds so much interesting sort of texture to the show and to that relationship. And I'm curious what you sort of hope to convey with those when it's just sort of the two of them talking and it's a bit of a lighter vibe.
Right. Well, I think I was trying to capture a woman of a certain era. I think of my mother and her friends who were more or less housewives and who really believed in these social norms and power structures and really kind of held that up and really played into the gender roles and kind of what they must have thought about that, and how they had to really believe in that and commit to it. I think the show also addresses a lot about the American dream and capitalism and other things that, these characters were really caught up in. I think, they were really wanting to, be this wealthy, glowing couple. And it was a lot of it was a facade, even within the costumes, she's not really wearing designer stuff. She's like you said, playing the part.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I find really interesting about that last scene on the boat in particular is José encouraging Kitty to go back into journalism. And I just find that such an interesting layer, especially since we all know what the media frenzy, directly after this sort of ensued was. I'm curious what you sort of made of that, if anything.
Well, they had met in college and that was what she was studying. So I think it's a nod back to, the real Kitty Menendez. And I think we wanted just to end the series with a real moment of levity. And then, you pan to the boys at the front of the boat and you know what they're about to do. So it's just having that juxtaposition of the two energies of, what's about to happen to them, yet they're finally having this nice moment together out on the water. And, it's just hopefully is a chilling, impactful moment.
For sure. And you mentioned levity, and I've read in other interviews that you all did sort of try to keep it a little bit lighter on set, which feels like it's very necessary to get through something like this. I'm curious what you sort of did in order to keep that vibe sort of up so, you know, you can get out of that dark place.
Well, I live in New York and we were shooting in Los Angeles, and I brought my son a lot. And I think a young, toddler always brings a lot of joy to any situation. And he would come at lunchtime, and I always ate with Nicholas and Cooper, and the other crew members. And, we would just share a meal. We would be in hair and makeup, talking about our families and our days and dating and other things, and just trying to really be open with the boys and make them feel safe because they were carrying the weight of the show. And, just having an openness with them, I think really helps create a warm environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that chemistry shines through even with the darkness of the material. But yeah thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Just congratulations again. It was really a pleasure to talk to you.